Choosing a research topic can feel like you're staring at a blank map with no destination in sight, but it is the single most important step in any project. Getting it right is the difference between a journey of discovery and just getting hopelessly lost. So today, we're going to draw that map for you.
We're going to break this down into a 5-step journey. We'll start by tackling that initial blank page anxiety, and then we'll uncover where all the best ideas are really hiding. From there, we'll learn how to sharpen a broad interest into a focused question, and finally, and this is the big one, make sure it's a question that's actually worth answering.
All right, first up, the blank page problem. You know the feeling, right? That intimidating moment where the possibilities are endless, which, ironically, is exactly why it can feel so paralyzing. Finding that perfect question is always the first major hurdle.
Where do you even begin? The pressure can feel absolutely immense. You need a topic that's not just interesting, but one that's actually achievable. Too often, people rush this crucial first step. And what happens? You're building your whole project on a shaky foundation right from the get-go. And this really gets to the heart of it. The time you invest right now is going to pay off big time down the road. Being really deliberate at the start means you won't waste months chasing a dead end or realizing way too late that your question is unanswerable. It's the classic measure twice, cut once idea, but for research.
A good way to think about it is like this. Your research question is the foundation of a house. If that foundation is strong and well-defined, you can build something solid on top of it. But if it's weak or vague, well, as our sources warn, the whole thing is probably going to come crashing down. Seriously, the impact of your entire project gets decided right here, at the very beginning.
Okay, so if having a strong question is that important, where in the world do you find one? Well, the good news is great research ideas aren't tucked away in some secret vault. They're literally all around us, just waiting to be uncovered.
Inspiration isn't some magical lightning strike. It's more like a spark you can find almost anywhere. It might come from a conversation with a colleague, a paper you're reading, or a problem you keep seeing in your own work. Think about it. A doctor just noticing a weird pattern in her patient's symptoms. Boom, that's the start of a research question.
And that's the thing. Those real-world problems, they often lead to the most impactful research. This is what people call translational value. It's a fancy term for a simple idea. Research that doesn't just sit on a shelf in a journal, but actually gets translated into a solution that helps people.
Okay, so you've got that initial spark. Now what? Well, the next step is all about refining it. We've got to go from this huge, broad territory on the map to one specific, pinpointed destination. This is the art of narrowing it down, and it's where a vague interest becomes a real, viable project.
So it all kicks off with just a broad area of interest, something you're genuinely curious about. Let's use the example from our source material here, the massive field of schizophrenia. It's huge, right? You can't possibly study all of it, but that's okay. It's the perfect place to start.
From there, you dive into the literature. And look, this isn't just about reading papers. It's more like eavesdropping on the current conversation happening in that field. What are the hot topics? What are people debating right now? Doing this makes sure you're actually adding something new to that conversation instead of just repeating what's already been said.
And as you do this review, something really important starts to appear. It's the most critical piece of this whole puzzle, the knowledge gap. It's that missing piece, the unanswered question, the spot where the current research just isn't complete. That gap, that's your sweet spot. That's your opportunity.
All right, we've found our gap. Now it's time to build a bridge across it. And we're going to do that using two really powerful frameworks that are basically our blueprints for building a solid, answerable question.
First up is a framework called PICO. Its whole purpose is super simple. It stops you from asking those big, vague questions. It forces you to get specific about every essential component, turning a fuzzy idea into something you can actually test.
So let's just break this down real quick. P stands for population. Who exactly are you studying? I is the intervention. What specific thing are you testing? C is the comparison. What are you comparing it against? A placebo, the current standard treatment? And O is the outcome. How will you know if it worked? How will you measure success? You see, every single letter forces you to be super precise.
Okay, so you've used PICO, and you've built this really specific question, but now you gotta ask, is it actually a good question? And that's where our second framework, FINER, comes into play. Just think of it like the final quality check before you move forward. This checklist is absolutely essential. F is for feasible.
I mean, can you actually do this? Do you have the time, the money, the resources? I is for interesting, to you and to other people. N is for novel. Has this been answered 100 times before? E is for ethical, which is non-negotiable. And finally, R is for relevant. Does anyone care about the answer?
Something else that's really critical to understand is that the kind of question you ask basically dictates your entire research method. If you're asking about, say, the prevalence of something, how common it is, you're probably going to end up doing a survey. But if you're asking about the efficacy of a treatment, that's going to lead you straight to a clinical trial.
So for example, asking, hey, does this new treatment actually work? Is a totally different ballgame from asking, what causes this disease in the first place? One requires a clinical trial with a treatment and a control group. The other might involve going back and looking at patient histories. So your question doesn't just guide your research, it literally designs it for you.
And that brings us to the final, and I'd argue most important filter for your whole research idea. You can have a perfectly crafted, PICO-structured, FINER-approved question, but it's still got to pass one last test. So let's recap, right? We started with a broad interest, we found that knowledge gap, we used PICO to build a question, and then we checked it with FINER. We've done all the heavy lifting, all the technical stuff.
But after all of that, there's still one simple, really powerful question left to ask. It's actually the R in FINER, and honestly, it's the one that matters the most, and that's relevance. You have to look at your question, straight on, and ask yourself, does this pass the so what test? So what? If you find the answer, who cares? Who will it help? What's going to change because of it? If you can't answer that, you need to go back to the drawing board. Because at the end of the day, a great research topic isn't just about finding a question you can answer. It's about finding a question that truly matters once you do.